Hello and welcome along to the Panto podcast. In this week's episode, I meet Paul Dunn. Paul is a Shakespearean actor who is a writer, producer and director who has also found his own niche in Dame, where he's been performing quite a lot in the northeast, especially in Durham as well at the Gala Theatre. He shares his stories about pantomime. He also talks about his love of Shakespeare. So please sit back and enjoy the latest Panto podcast. I'm joined today with Paul Dunn from the world of theatre. How would you best describe yourself?
Well, I suppose as an actor primarily, I trained as an actor, but I do all kinds now. You know, you've got to sort of be a jack of all trades, master of none. So I do quite a lot of writing now as well, but also direct when it's called upon. And we've got a company, so I produce things as well sometimes. You know, but mostly as a writer performer, I would say that's my main trade.
And what first got you started with theatre?
Well, it was my amateur club, I suppose, really, where I'm from in Sunderland. I always did Saturday morning drama classes as a youth and that kind of thing. And I ended up joining my local amateur club, which was the Royalty Theatre in Sunderland, in the youth theatre. Did a few bits and pieces there, and then the first thing I did there, the first thing on the main stage, shall we say, with the adults, was the Scottish play Macbeth. I don't mind saying it. Tiny little part. I was Banquo's son, and I think I doubled as a messenger in the second act. I was the cream-faced loon in the second act. So that was the first thing. But then the following year, they were doing a production of Brighton Beach Memoirs, and they'd seen me in the scene that I was around, and they thought, oh yeah, he's not too bad. And I got the part of Eugene in that, you know, the one that Matthew Broderick made famous on Broadway. And that's when I was really, I suppose, noticed by everyone there, and from then on I never stopped doing stuff. They were always asking us to do stuff. And I really, really loved it. Really got the bug, and it was a member there that said, you know, a few years later, you should go to drama school. You should go and train and do it professionally, which I did end up doing. But that's, as so many people say, you know, that's where it all started. Doing the Saturday morning drama classes and the amateur stuff in your hometown.
What made you actually want to do the drama?
I don't know, really, to be honest. I think it was something that was always there. It's a funny thing, and I can remember doing when we were little kids, and we used to do the school assembly. It was our class's turn to do the school assembly, and you'd present whatever, your little play that the teacher had written. And it's a funny memory I've got. I must have only been 7 or 8 years old, maybe. And I had this thing that I had to do. I can't remember exactly what the context of the play was, but I had to do this thing where I had to be told off by a teacher and go and do something, you know, and then walk back to my place really sad and dejected. And it's funny, isn't it, how these memories stick in your head all these years later so clearly. I did this little thing, this little part, and it's I can remember feeling at the time, it sounds like I'm being such an actor now, but if you know what you feel at the time, oh God, yeah, I'm really doing this, I really believe this, that I'm this character or whatever, you know. And that's my earliest memory of, maybe there's something there, of being an actor. Does that sound naff? It sounds a bit naff as I'm saying it out loud. But
how old would you have been then?
I think about 8. It was junior school, and it was the early part of junior school, what we then used to call, you know, first or second year. What is it now? Year 3 or 4, I think now. Yeah. Called. So it was quite, you know, pretty young as a kid. But even before that, I can remember the first line I ever said on stage, which was in infant school. Again, one of your class, you know, assembly presentations. And so I would have only then been 5 or 6 years old. and I had one line which I had to say 3 or 4 times, I think, and it was me and who was my sister, and we'd always go over to the next door's garden, and the animals there were really sad, and our line was that we always had to say to these little animals, "Don't cry, we'll take you to a much better place." And that's the first line I ever had to say on a stage in my life, and I still remember it.
You'll have to write that into something one day.
Yeah.
Did you go and see much theatre then when you were a little one? Go and see pantos?
Do you know, I didn't. Again, I don't know where it comes from with me, because my family, my parents, are not theatre people. They're not like, you know, artistic people in any way, really. And I don't say that horribly. They're just not. You know, they're just working class northern family who just get on with their life, and you know, and look after their kids and all. You know, they just didn't do that kind of thing. So I never really had any kind of exposure to theatre, really. So yeah, I don't really know where it came from. But I can remember always wanting to join the amateur club that was there. You know, the Royalty. Whenever we drive past, from coming home from the town, I can remember saying to my parents over and over again, "Will you take us? Will you take me in to join?" Eventually they did. But yeah, before that I didn't really see anything, to be honest. The odd school trip, I can remember being taken out. It must have been somewhere like the Theatre Royal in Newcastle with a junior school to see a huge production of The Voyage of the Dawn Treader, which was obviously touring the country at the time. But yeah, other than that, didn't really see anything.
What about life in a northern town, growing up and then finding out that you wanted to get into theatre? Was that ever difficult at all?
It wasn't difficult for me in that I knew that was what I wanted to do, so that I was going to do it. I would go to the rehearsals on a Monday, Wednesday, and Friday evening down to the amateur club or whatever. But it did mean, I must be honest, that I ended up not ostracising myself, because that sounds, it wasn't that, but it was just that I was obviously going off and having different interests to my old mates who I used to play footy with or whatever, so I'd end up not spending as much time with them, and became it sounds like woe is me now, isn't it? But I suppose became a bit of a loner in that sense. But it didn't bother us, because I was finding a whole new group of friends in this new environment that I was in, I suppose, and had more in common with these new friends of mine. And also, obviously, by the very nature of it, got to meet a much wider age range of friends as well, which I think stood us in good stead for my future career, certainly. But also just as a kind of, more rounded person, maybe,
Did you find it quite fulfilling then?
Yeah, I did. It's, a lot of people say this, a lot of actors say this, for their own various personal reasons, but it definitely was that thing where I never felt fully comfortable in my own skin, but as soon as I stepped on a stage and I had somebody else's words to say and I was confident to do that, that was a release, I think, is the easiest way to sort of describe it. Yeah.
What do you prefer then, a serious role or a bit more comical?
Back in the day when I was younger, I went through definite phases of I only want to do serious stuff, and then a year later or whatever, I just want to do comedy. And now I think as I've got older, I've realised that variety is the spice of life. I suppose it's nice to do a mix of different things. I couldn't just do serious, and I couldn't just do comedy now. I like to mix it up. So for example, a couple of years ago we produced a Shakespeare season. So we did 3 Shakespeare's kind of back to back. It was for, you know, the 400th anniversary of Shakespeare. So there was a lot going on anyway. But we did our own little contribution to that. So we produced 3 serious Shakespeare's, which was great, and I absolutely loved doing that, you know, and putting the whole shows together and being in them as well, obviously. But then from that you go straight on to touring in a brilliant farce, which I think you've talked about previously, actually, Leah Bell's play, where I get to play this camp, completely over the top. I think I'm going too over the top, but Leah keeps saying, no, it's brilliant, more. Seriously Dead, this play, you know, so going from Shakespeare to a crazy, silly farce where I'm just, you know, really camping it up on stage, and then from that straight into pantomime, actually. So that's what I like now. I like getting the opportunity to do a variety of different things, and hopefully now that, you know, as you get older, you got more experience in doing things. So hopefully I can turn me head to slotting into doing them quite nicely. I hope, anyway. I certainly enjoy the challenge of it.
How did you get involved with Panto then?
Well, I suppose the first professional one I did was very, very soon after graduating from drama school, because the school that I was at had their own children's theatre attached to it in, well, not quite Ascot, just outside in Sunninghill. It's called the Novello Theatre. And I'd done pretty well at college, you know, and they saw that I you know, I wasn't bad, I had potential, kind of thing. So the principal put me in one of her pantos really early on. So I got to play the Sheriff of Nottingham. I was far too young to play it. I was only, whatever I was, 21 or 22 or something. But I got to do that and really loved it. Really enjoyed everything about it, I suppose. And I was there for maybe 2 or 3 years after that, and she always put me and my partner as well, Vanessa, into the pantos, and we got to play the comedy double act together. That was the first time I played Dame 1 year as well, opposite her villain. So, you know, I think it was Jack and the Beanstalk. I was Jack's mother, Dame Trot, and my partner Vanessa, she was I think she was a wicked witch or something. So that was really nice. So it was those early days where I got the chance. I was given the chance to, you know, get my teeth into some really decent roles, and I thought, this is brilliant. I absolutely love this. So it's been fantastic all these years later. Now that I've moved back up here to the northeast, where I'm based now, obviously, and there's so much going on here in the northeast, which I love, and I've got the chance again to do, you know, to play all these roles again in Panto, which is brilliant. I love it.
Is there a favourite role that you like playing?
Well, at the minute I'm playing the Dame. I've played the Dame at the Gala in Durham for the last 4 years now, and I'm really loving that. I've kind of fallen into that, and it fits really nicely, you know. I've loved doing the other things in the past, you know, the Buttons kind of character, you know, the knockabout or the villain. You know, I did love doing the sheriff. But yeah, I think I'd have to say the Dame is it feels like it fits really nicely at the minute for me.
You play it quite gruff, don't you?
Yeah. I think it wasn't a conscious choice, that, but when I first got the Gala job 4 years ago, the lads gave me this script, and we played around with a few different things, you know, and I tried you know, those kind of voices, and messed about with it, and nothing really fitted, and it just kind of, you know, it just comes about naturally sometimes in the rehearsal room. I sort of fell into this, just sort of doing it in my own voice and really playing up the colloquialisms, I suppose, you know, the really broad sort of Geordie sort of stuff. And it started to get laughs in the room, you know, and they really liked that. And then as the years have gone, they've written more of that into the script because they know it works for me, and they like the way that it works for the audience as well. So it just seems to work.
And that very first time when you actually put on the frock, how was that?
Oh, I really don't like it. Believe it or not, it's one of those things where they're so heavy and they're so cumbersome and they're such a nightmare. But it's just one of them things, isn't it, that you have to do. You have to put the slap on, and you have to put the big dresses on and everything. The girl who gets us into the costumes at Durham, and she designs them as well, Emily. She's great. She's like, it's all right, Paul. Come on. Look, I've made it easy for you to get in and out of. You know, I just zip you up the back. There you go. That's it. And she doesn't put us in high heels or anything like that. It's all just, you know, Dr. Martens and that. So it's as comfortable as possible for us. But it's funny. It's a bit of a cliche, but you put it on and it does change your whole, you know, physicality and the way you present yourself, and it, you know, so in that sense it works really well. It's lovely. I'm not sad to see the back of some of the costumes, I'll be honest. When it comes around to January.
Any particular ones you've not liked?
One or two, but only literally because it's been so heavy, you know, to wear. Although there was one year, funnily enough, not at the Gala, at a different theatre, where I wasn't playing the Dame. I was playing kind of a broker's men sort of character. But there was also this other animal, shall we say, pantomime animal that had to appear halfway through. And they'd had the costume made, and it turned out that I was the only person that fitted in the costume. So I ended up having to do that as well. So halfway through the panto, I had to be this animal for about 10 minutes, you know, that pulled on the carriage at the end. And that was a nightmare to wear. Because, you know, when you're inside one of them costumes, you're hot and you're sweaty and it's heavy and, you know, I'm bent over to be on four legs. So, yeah, that wasn't fun. I didn't enjoy that.
What's your favourite part then of theatre?
Do you mean in panto or just
No, just theatre
generally?
in general, yeah.
Well, going back to that Shakespeare season that I was talking about, it had been an idea in my head for a long time, this particular production of Hamlet that we ended up doing. And that was a bit of a, you know, it's an obvious thing to say, I suppose, as an actor, but that was one that, you know, I ticked off the list that I'd been wanting to do for a long, long time. So that one, I suppose. I think, I mean, I haven't got any sort of specifics, you know, specific characters as such. I love it when I get something that I can really kind of get my teeth into, you know, which you don't always get the chance to, you know, the opportunity. Sometimes you just have to take a job to pay the rent, or, you know, to put the food on the table, kind of thing. But it's nice when you can get something that you really get your teeth into. Although I've got to say, and I'm not just saying this, that character that I play in Leah's farce, because it's so far removed from anything I've done before. And as I say, I was so concerned when we were first doing it in rehearsals that I was being too over the top, too hammy, too cliched. But, you know, Leah, as the director, said, no, go ahead and do it. It's absolutely how I want it, and it seems to get the reaction from the audiences. So that's been quite fun to do as well, you know, and doing these big camp. Very, very quickly, he plays this. I play this Undertaker, who's quite camp, and then in the second act you realise that he wants to be in the Lady Boys of Bangkok, and his old friend, who is obviously his boyfriend kind of thing, So he comes on in the second act, and we do this big number, this big Lady Boys of Bangkok number, completely over the top, fire fountains and everything going off, and that's been quite fun to do. We've been doing it for 3 years now, I think, on and off, and that's been interesting to do. That has been quite fun. So yeah, it's a nice varied mix there.
I'm sure the audience reactions as well to things like Shakespeare compared to Camping It Up, completely different, but still rewarding.
Yeah, absolutely. That's the thing that is so interesting, that I still find interesting, the different reactions that you get from audiences, and also, not just from different parts in different plays, but also, you can be doing the same panto for 70 odd performances, as we do every year, and again, it's a cliche in a way again, but every audience is different within that. You can get completely different reactions, and you can't say that reaction was wrong and that reaction. They are an audience, and they react in the way that they are for whatever reason, and I love that. I find that fascinating, and that's what I love working with Billy Pearce, again, another performer who you've had in this series. That's what I love about working with him, is he is superb at reading an audience almost immediately and riding that, and knowing how to play it, how to pitch it, to get the laughs, to squeeze everything out of it, and when to pull back as well. So that's, I love that.
You find you're still learning?
Absolutely. I mean, Billy's a perfect example, actually, for exactly that kind of thing. I could never do what he does in terms of the out and out comedy. Or he's a comic, he's a comedian, and he knows how to. So it's lovely to be in that company, to watch people like that. I mean, and Tommy Cannon came on board on that play as well recently, and I'm literally working with one of my childhood comedy heroes, which is a massive thrill. I mean, when I found out that Tommy was coming on board, I can't tell you how excited I was, because I genuinely, you must remember this Saturday night, Cannon and Ball. It was
huge, superstars,
massive. I mean, and he tells a lovely story of when they were kind of just coming up, him and Bobby, and they met Eric Morecambe at some, some do, it might have been a charity do or something, and I don't know if I should say that. I don't think I'm speaking out of turn here, because it's a very complimentary thing. Eric shook his hand, and he said, all right boys, or whatever, and he said, apparently Eric said to them, you boys are the only ones at the minute that we're worried about, as in Cannon and Ball were really, really coming up. They were fantastic. They were so good, and I think, because I look back at clips now, I think still stand the test of time in the way that other comedians of that era maybe haven't done so much, and I'm not going to name any names, but
no.
So absolutely still learning in all, not just about performing, but in working within a company as well, the way to be in a company, and the way that people deal with other people or problems or issues or just creative things that you have to get over. You never stop learning. I think the day you stop learning is the day you might as well pack in, because you don't know everything. Nobody knows everything. So yeah.
How do you find audiences in terms of, in a panto audience, with matinee performances, with the schools in? How are you finding them?
I love the schools. I love the schools audience, because you never know what you're going to get. Some will be really very well behaved, and will laugh in all the right places, and will be quiet when they know they have to be quiet because they've been told that they have to be quiet. And then you get other schools who are just, yes, I'm out of school, I've had a whole bag of Haribo and I'm mental. and they just riding that is great. I love it. I absolutely love it. They're the ones for me. When you get the evening shows, I suppose, or the weekend ones where you have got more families, it's nice when more of the jokes land, I suppose. More of the ones where you have to, oh yeah, that is a joke, and I get it, because you hear the adults laughing at that. And I'm not talking about adult jokes there. I'm not talking about the kind of innuendo stuff, because we don't really do that in ours. Which I personally think is a good thing. I'm not a big fan of that whole innuendo side of things, because I'm just not. But it's nice to hear the jokes land more. But yeah, I love the school shows. Absolutely love them. Love the kids. They're great.
Does that still bring a part of the childish person in you? Yeah, definitely.
And again, I think, I suppose that's part of it. That's part of the joy of doing Panto, of performing in Panto, is that you can just be silly. I make no great claims of anything that I do. I just put on a silly costume, do a silly voice, try my best to mess about and be as daft and silly and as entertaining as I can be, hopefully, and that's what you do as a kid, isn't it? You play around, you play dress up, and you invent these scenarios, and yeah, I think you're right. Actually, yeah, it is. It kind of goes back to a little bit of childhood.
Did you do the old dressing up thing when you were a child at home?
No, not dressing up. I didn't have a dress up box or anything like that. But I can remember, playing games, I suppose, both with friends and on my own, where you sort of immerse yourself in this whole situation, this whole life. I can remember. Oh, this is so embarrassing. I don't know if I'm going to tell you this.
Oh, you've got to now. You've got to. You're in your comfy chair.
Oh man. Well, I always wanted to be Doctor Who. I'd still love to be Doctor Who, but I don't think I'd ever get cast as Doctor Who now. But I had this really long scarf, because Tom Baker was my Doctor Who. That was my era, and I had this really long scarf. So I would quite happily, for hours on end, play by myself at being Doctor Who, and I'd just walk around outside with my long scarf on, just being in this world. I mean, I can't even remember any specifics to give you, but I just remember. Oh God, I'm really embarrassed now. Being Doctor Who, and our front porch was me TARDIS. So I'd be in the TARDIS and pressing all the buttons, and I'd travel off to somewhere else, and and then go out and explore wearing me big long scarf. So,
nothing to be embarrassed about. It's imagination.
Yeah, well, that's it. That's what I'm getting at. I think. Yeah. That's what you do as a kid, and I think that's what taps into when we do these things, these shows, whether it be Panto or anything else. Yeah.
Do you find a lot of it is escapism when you go on stage?
Yeah, definitely. I think, as I was saying before, that thing of when I step on stage, that's when I'm completely at ease, if you like, and it is a release, and it is. I think a form of escapism from, and I don't say that as in I've got a horrible life that I have to escape from. It's not that, but it is. It's a lovely thing to, and it's not a conscious thing. I think it's not a conscious feeling, but it is that thing of you go on stage for 2 or 3 hours or whatever it is, and you know that for that time, this is what's happening, and that's what's going to happen next, and these are the words that you're going to say, and then they're going to say these words back to you, and it's a comfortable place to be anyway. And if the nature of the piece is that you're getting a wonderful reaction back from the audience as well, that's all part of the fulfillment of it, and it is a huge kind of form of escapism in that way, I suppose. Yeah.
Do you get nervous before a performance?
Yes, yeah, I do. Not so much as I used to when I was younger, but you still feel the nerves. Even like again, going back to that play Seriously Dead that we've been doing. We've been doing it for 3 years now, so it's not nerves about will I remember the lines or do I know what's going to happen next or whatever. It's because we just know we can just slot back into it. We remember it. But whenever we go back to it after a few months off, for me, the first couple of nights, there's still those nerves come back again. It's and it's I don't know why. I don't know. I can't explain it. It's just there. I think it's just you want to do a good. You're nervous about doing a good job. You want to be able to do it well. But thankfully, I used to be kind of crucified by nerves in my younger days, and that maybe that was just a bit of a lack of experience thing. It's the nature of the beast, isn't it? The more you do it over the years, the more comfortable you are, and the more you think, okay, it's all right. You've done this before, and you can probably do it again, so you don't have to worry about that. But yeah, they still kick in.
How long does it take you then to actually feel like you've nailed a part?
It's I think probably usually within the first week, I would say. That's when I can really settle into it. I usually give myself, certainly when we're talking about Panto, and I know I've got a long run. I've got, as I say, 70 odd performances. I usually give myself. We open on a Thursday night usually, and I usually like to think that by the end of the first weekend, I'm settled. And that's not to say you're still not trying things and changing things as the run goes on, but maybe what would that be? 5 or 6 performances usually. Yeah.
And what about switching off after the performances? Once the actual run's done, how long does it take you? Because you said you go kind of from Panto sometimes straight into a different play or whatever. Is that quite a difficult process to be able to switch off from that character, or?
Not so much these days, to be honest, because you do need to do that. It's a necessity, really. You kind of, your brain just, well, for me personally, my brain is able to kind of switch off from that, and it's sort of, you can let those lines go now. Funny enough, I was listening to Stephen Tompkinson on the radio yesterday, because he was talking about this similar sort of thing, because he's doing art at the moment. He's touring in art, but he's done it before, and he was saying the same thing. Your brain somehow seems to, if you're going back to something, it can retain the lines somehow, or the vast majority of the lines, but as soon as you finish something, you're able to just switch off. Those lines are gone, and the next lot of lines come in, and the next character starts to sort of take residence in your brain, sort of thing. So I'm usually pretty good at moving on to the next thing. Yeah.
And you said there about lines. Now, one thing that I've never completely got: how on earth do you remember the lines for a Shakespeare play? What's your process? Yeah.
A lot of people say this. It's if it's talking about Shakespeare specifically, I suppose the rhythm of it helps to learn. But it is just one of those things. I think if you love Shakespeare, it makes it easier to learn them, to retain them, because you just love the language of it, and you love the rhythm of it and all the rest of it. Whereas if you're learning it and it's just you're not understanding it, then it's not going to go in as easily. But then other than that, it is literally just a case of you just keep reading it and saying it out loud and understanding it as more and more. I think the more times you read it and speak it, the more you understand it, and it's literally just that, But it does take time. You've got to put the hours in. It's as simple as that.
Have you found yourself over the years getting better with that?
Worse.
Yeah.
I'm terrible. I find it such a chore learning lines now. I really do. it's one of those kind of, maybe it's necessary evil is a bit strong, but it's one of those things you just have to do it. It's part of the job, and you have to sit down and do it. But I do find it, I find it a chore to sit down and do it. But then once they're in, and it's that thing of when you're in the rehearsal room and you start putting it on its feet and you start playing with stuff with the other actors in the room, that's when it really comes alive, and you go, oh yeah, that's landing now. That's sort of sticking there. But I find myself more and more these days using little tricks to remember lines, like word association and things like that, because I just have to do it, because they don't just. If the brain is a sponge, then my sponge is a lot smaller than it was when I first started. Because I have to use little tricks.
Does that apply to pantomime as well then?
Not so much, but still to a degree. You kind of have to, and this is more so before you go into the room, I think, because I always like to be at least familiar with the script before we start the first day of rehearsals. So that's when I'll use little tricks to remember lines or whatever. But then once you're in there, you know what it's like in a panto rehearsal. It's everybody's playing around and everybody's mucking about with their stuff, and you find that you're making cuts here, there, and everywhere, or the writers will write a better joke for you. So it's a bit more of a kind of a fluid process, I suppose, when you're doing panto. So that's a bit easier in that sense. And also, and where I've been the last 4 years at Durham, the lads are great for giving everyone a certain amount of freedom. Once you're up and running, not to take the mickey and to just go off and do completely your own thing, but we're not stuck rigidly to a particular script or whatever. They're not precious about their script in that sense, I suppose. So you're a bit freer to find your own way of making something work if it fits easier for you. Saying it that way rather than the way that they've written the words down on the page, kind of thing. So that's a bit easier.
For somebody then who hasn't trained as a comic, how do you find the ad-libbing in panto?
Well, I love that, because I always loved improvisation at college, and I've always enjoyed doing that, and I've always it's not for me to say. I've always been good at that, because that's who am I to say that? But I've always enjoyed doing it, and whenever I've done it and performed in those kind of shows, it's always gone pretty well. Sorry, that's a lie. It's not always gone well, because sometimes you do crash and burn, don't you, in anything you do. But generally speaking, it's something that I'm comfortable with. Let's put it that way. So that's something that in panto I enjoy as well, and all the stuff where I've got the banter with the dad in the front row, for example. I love doing all of that stuff, and it's not, and it's something that you don't really get to do in any other kind of show that you perform. So that's that's again, I suppose, one of the other reasons why I love going back and doing panto so much. You get to do those kind of things that you don't get to do in other shows for 11 months of the year.
Does it feel a release then?
Yeah, I suppose it does really, because it's nice to be able to break the fourth wall like that. It feels like, I've never really thought of that, but that's a good question, because you're breaking out of the world that you're in, and suddenly you're bringing it out to them, to the audience. Again, sorry to keep going back to the same show, Seriously Dead, the other play that I'm doing, but I've got a little bit right at the end of the first act where I get to do that. I go out as this Undertaker character into the audience and start interacting with people in the audience, and it sort of takes them by surprise as well, but they love it and they go with it, and it's lovely for me to do that. I really enjoy doing that. And then it becomes a kind of, there's still interaction going on between me and the other actors on the stage as well. So it brings the whole thing in. It's like everybody's in the room together. It's a massive sort of inclusive thing. Which is great.
Does it feel liberating then?
It really does. Yeah. It sort of, I suppose it kind of in some small way it breaks down that thing of, oh, this is the theatre, and you must sit there and watch this piece of theatre. It just breaks through that completely, and it becomes, we're all in this same room, we're all together in this room, and we all want to enjoy ourselves. And however that might, manifest itself.
When you first saw Panto as a child, did you enjoy the experiences?
The first ones I saw, I suppose, were, again, going back to my amateur days, and I did. I didn't see that many, unfortunately, but one or two maybe. But I do remember enjoying watching them, and I didn't know why, and I didn't know what it was that I was enjoying about it, but I just knew that there was this, these really talented people, even if that wasn't a kind of conscious thought, it's just watching this world, this mad world where all these colours were in front of you, and it's kind of like, in a way, watching a sort of fairy tale come to life, I suppose, isn't it? And brilliant dancers and the great singers and everything. The whole experience it's something you never forget. And again, that's another reason why. And a lot of people say this, but Panto is, for many kids, for the majority of kids, I would say, their first experience of theatre. And you want to make that as enjoyable an experience for them, and as great a memory for them as you possibly can, which is a great kind of privilege, really, and something to really kind of enjoy and get a hold of.
Do you ever feel the pressure of that when you're getting ready? I could be influencing the next generation.
I know that sounds very grand, doesn't it? But you sort of, I don't think of it once we're in and we're up and running, and I'm getting ready in the dressing room and all that. I it's not a sort of conscious thought then, but I do love the sound of, when you've got the relay on and you can hear the audience start to come in, and you get the announcements, the house is now live, do not cross the stage, and you start to hear the kids coming in. That creates a bit of a buzz, and it's sort of that thing of, right, here we go again, come on, let's blast this out the park for them, let's really do a good show for them. So I think it's more that, but I'm always kind of aware when I go back year after year to, you get the phone call and it's, oh yeah, you're coming back, sort of thing. It's like, oh, good, great. And another, hopefully, new bunch of kids that we can just entertain. That's what it's all about, really, isn't it? We're just telling a good story and entertaining people. That's what it boils down to.
So I see from your home, music is quite the influence with yourself as well. There's a few bits and pieces.
There's a few bits and pieces, yeah. I certainly wouldn't call myself a musician, but I've got a guitar and a ukulele that I like to have a little strum on every now and then, and there's a piano in the dining room there that is actually Vanessa's, my partner's, but we both sort of tinkle on that a little bit. She's got a saxophone in there as well that she hasn't had out for a while, but we like to have a little go when we can, and I like to put them into shows when I can as well, but yeah, I'm no virtuoso. I can strum a few chords on the guitar, although not so much these days.
So what's for the people listening? Paul's just held up his hand, or shall I say, not
Half
part of
a hand, yeah. Yes, I had a little run-in with a circular saw a little while back. Yeah, in the old place where we used to live. It was a wood-burning fire. Anyway, I won't go into the details, but
please don't.
Exactly, yeah. Had a bit of an accident there. But so not even half, but some of my little finger on my right hand is gone, is missing. But I'm left-handed, so of course I play guitar. So that's the right hand is the hand that I need to make all the chord shapes and everything. So it's become a bit tricky to do all the D sus chords and things like that.
Have you adapted well though to it?
Yeah. I mean, it's weird because you have to twist your hand round to reach the strings that you didn't have to so much before. So it's a bit funny. It's a bit odd, but as I say, I was never a good enough guitar player anyway for it to really bother us, that kind of thing. But but I always say to people, because I'm left-handed anyway, so I always say to people, well, God, if you had to choose a part of your body that you have to give up, then the little finger on your wrong hand is the one that you could. It could have been a hell of a lot worse. Yeah, it really could. Yeah, but anyway, yeah. But no, to go back to the music. Yes, we do. And it's more like an enjoyment thing, a relaxation thing. I would never say that I would, like I say, I would never put myself out as a musician and perform it in any kind of big or amazing way. I can strum a few chords on the uke, let's say, in shows, but it's all part of the creative.
It's a nice string to have to your bow.
Yes. Yeah. It's there. It's lurking around there somewhere. I'd never call myself a triple threat or whatever it is these days.
What about then illnesses when you're doing panto? Have you had much of that before?
In the companies that I've been in, yes, a lot. But me personally, I seem to be able to avoid, or I have to, touch wood. I always have done in the past. I never seem to get ill during a run, and I don't know why that is. I just don't. Sometimes you get to the end of a run and your body just suddenly goes, oh, and then you get ill. Then you get the cold for 3 weeks that everybody's had during the run. But yeah, when I'm actually in the middle of the run, I seem to be able to get away with it. And what I don't do, which I see a lot of people doing, the younger ones, they move into their dressing rooms and they've got, it looks like a shelf in Boots the Chemist, they've got all these vitamin C's and all this, and I try to avoid that because I think you just say to yourself, well, you're going to get ill. So, I don't do that. I just go, no, you just turn up, do the show, and then, be sensible, eat well and look after yourself kind of thing. But I've been in runs in the past where we've had people had to go off because they literally, couldn't speak, let's say, for example. But yeah, no, I tend to, as I say, so far, touch wood,
yes,
I've tended to. No, that's it. Yeah.
What's been your favourite part of pantomime then?
I think. Do you mean like what part to play?
No. What's your favourite part of it? Is it the
whole thing?
The whole. Is it the entertaining the children? Is it entertaining the families? Is it being part of a great company?
That's a big thing for me, actually. Yeah, and it's something that I always say to people when I'm putting other shows together, not just Panto. Is the company. It's one of the things that I always try to do, and I remember it from one of our first ever directors back at drama college, 20 odd years ago. She always said to us, be a good company member. Be, obviously you've got to bring something to the table. You've got to be good. You've got to, do your job. But be nice. Be generous with people. Be nice. I suppose it's that thing of treat people how you would want to be treated. And I've been really lucky in most of the shows that I've done where it has been that environment. It's been a really nice company. The one I did most recently, funnily enough, was a perfect example of that. A lot of us knew each other anyway from other previous jobs, but even the people who were just meeting for the first time then, just everybody gelled, everybody got on, everybody enjoyed each other's company, and that lends itself, I think, to being a very generous atmosphere in the rehearsal room and also on stage as well, and I love that, really enjoy that.
Has anybody ever taken you under their wing, given you advice?
Yeah, I mean, there's been one or two that have done that. Certainly back in the day when I first started, when I was doing my early pantos, there was a guy, an actor who he was playing the Dame when I first started, when I was doing other little parts, and he was very good, and a different style to how I do it now, but I was able to watch him and learn from him, and he encouraged us, I suppose, because I was just fresh out of drama school, young, very, very early 20s, and didn't have any experience really of working in the professional game, if you like. And he just kind of, because we shared a dressing room, well, it was like one of these theatres where all the lads in one dressing room, all the girls in the other, and he'd just have little chats with us, and he'd give us little pointers on how to do things, and I always remember that, and I was sort of aware of it at the time, but you only really appreciate it afterwards, you know what I mean? So that was, and we went on to work quite a bit together later on as well, in other things, not just in Panto, but in various, all sorts of different things. So yeah, so I try to kind of do that now, pay that back a little bit. If there's younger members come into companies, I try not to be, because you do see it, unfortunately, sometimes some older members of companies can be a bit, grumpy or whatever, or they just keep themselves to themselves, or they, but I try to be kind of, I suppose, inclusive, and to encourage people, and help them where I can, whatever that might be, whether it might be advice or just a bit of encouragement or whatever.
What would be your advice then for young thespians listening?
I would say stick at it. If it's something that you really know that you want to do, keep on your path. Don't let people try and pull you off your path. But if there's anything else that you think you might also want to do, go and do that instead, because there's that thing of, it's such a precarious profession and all the rest of it. But if it's something that you absolutely have your heart set on, absolutely pursue it, and keep learning, keep looking at other things that you might not be so familiar with, whether it be other genres of theatre or whatever, people who you might not know of or have heard of, particularly if it's comedy that you want to go back and study some of the people that were a generation or two before you, and in terms of like what we'd be talking about, people like the Cannonballs or the Norman Wisdoms or the Tommy Coopers, that those kind of people, you can learn so much from them, and yeah, just kind of, and enjoy it as well. Don't get too serious about it, because I was guilty of that, I must admit. When I was younger, I was very serious. I took myself very seriously, and I try not to do that anymore so much these days, because it's all just a bit of fun, innit? And I think if you take things a bit too seriously, you miss out on things, you miss out on the fun of it. So yeah.
Anything that you'd like to do or wish you'd done differently? Obviously, we know the Doctor Who thing.
The Doctor Who, yes.
You might get the call.
You never know. I think is there anything I'd like to do? It's a bit of a boring answer, but just keep working. Keep working, but there's no kind of specific parts as such, except for maybe what I would like to do is, and I don't know if this is ever going to be achievable now, but I'd like to have been in every single Shakespeare play.
Wow.
Before I die.
How many have you knocked up now?
Not anywhere near as many as I should have done. But that would be a nice little ambition to achieve. Yeah.
And anything you wish you'd done differently?
No, not really. I mean, there's always. I think you can always look back at things and say, if I'd made that decision rather than that decision, who knows where I could be now? All that nonsense. But actually, I'm very happy where I am now, and I'm here because of the paths and the decisions that I've taken through my life. So yeah, it's been all right. It's been a kind of old journey, and I'm happy to keep on the journey that I'm on, I suppose, really. Particularly now that I've widened my field a bit, and I am doing more of other things like the writing, the directing, running the company, so we're able to produce things and also do other kinds of things. Funnily enough, we're hoping to do more. I hate to call them things like Easter pantos and that, but these shows that are seasonal, but they're outside of the usual panto season. We've got very, very early days at the minute, but we're just in the process of putting shows like that together at the minute, which will hopefully see the light of day later this year. So that all comes into it now, and I really enjoy that side of things.
Well, this leaves me to ask you the very last question.
Mm-hmm.
Your dream panto. You could be in it, you could be watching it, you can choose the theatre, the production, the cast, and they can be alive or not so alive.
Oh, that's good. That's a good. Well, I think I'd have to be in it because I get so much enjoyment from doing them every year, and I'd probably be the Dame, because as I was saying earlier, that's the one that I've really kind of settled into nicely at this sort of stage. Actually, I'd probably say Cinderella if I had to choose a particular one, and so I would love to be the ugly sister with Billy Pierce. I'd love Billy Pierce to play the other ugly sister. So that would be one, because in the little bits where we are working together at the minute, we sort of bounce off each other so nicely. I love seeing him on stage. I love his little glint in his eye. So I think that would work really well. I suppose I've got to say as well, Tommy Cannon as the villain. That would be great. I'd love to see that. I'd love to be in a show where that was going on. And then. Yeah, it's more people who I've worked with in the past, I suppose, rather than anyone famous in that sense.
Please name check, because I'm sure they'd love to hear their names.
Well, again, you think of people like Charlie Richmond, I would say, as Buttons in that. I've seen him in Panto obviously a few times, and got to work with him last year in a play. It wasn't Panto, it was a play, but he's lovely bloke, love him to bits, and such. Again, going back to that thing of good company member, you know, getting that really nice company feel. He's a lovely guy to have around. So yeah, I'll go with that. The missus, I would honestly say, I'm not just saying that because she's my missus and she's probably listening. But yeah, you know, again, going back to what I was saying earlier, we did pantos together way back in the day, and I think she doesn't realise how good and how funny she is, to be honest. She's her own worst critic in many senses, but I mean, we did a radio show together a while ago, a couple of years ago, and she was definitely the funniest out of the two of us, you know, when we were just doing little off the cuff stuff. So yeah, it'd be lovely to work with her.
So we need a Cinder. Would she be fairy godmother then?
Yes, she'd be good at that. But a proper kind of down to earth fairy godmother, I think. Yeah, she'd be great at that.
Bit salt of the earth.
Yeah, salt of the earth. Yeah.
So we've got Tommy Cannon would be.
Yeah, I think he'd be slightly. Yeah,
Wicked Stepmother. Yeah,
could be. Yeah, or yeah. It's a funny one, that one, actually, isn't it? That show for the baddie. But he could do that.
You need your Prince Charming.
Oh, who's Prince Charming gonna be?
They've got to be good looking, haven't they?
Well, I know.
Reasonably.
I know. Yeah. I don't know. I can't. Yeah.
We'll let you off that one.
Yeah, let me off that one.
And then your Cinders.
Well, again, you know, it comes down to, and sorry if this is like a boring answer, but it's people who I've worked with in the past, you know, and they're all local actresses, very, very good. There's someone who, in fact, the last time I did that show, Cinderella, she was our Cinders, an actress called Hazel Pewd, who is brilliant, great actress, fantastic singing voice, looks great as well, you know, looked perfect in that part, and is such she's the nicest, funniest, most, you know, she's bubbliest personality I've worked with, you know, in a long time. She'd be great. She's a great Cinders. Yeah.
And a Baron.
There's an actor who I worked with a good few years ago, a guy called Fred Ridgway, and he'd be great as that. Again, it's these names are not, you know, household names or anything like that, but great. Yeah, he'd be good actually as the Baron.
If they can do the job, they can do the job. That's the thing. It doesn't always need to be a name. No. And whereabouts would you like to have it?
Well, I'm a big kind of advocate, I suppose, for the local scene. For me, it wouldn't need to be a huge theatre. It wouldn't need to be a West End thing or anything like that. I'd love to keep it local. You know, and as I say, you know, I've been at the Gala the last few years, but do you know what? I'd quite like to take it to somewhere. Maybe it's a little community theatre. You know, really going back to where it all started. Yeah,
wherever you want.
Yeah. Mind you, that's probably not good for business, is it? Maybe we should go bigger. Theatre Royal or something like that. Yeah. No. Yeah, but certainly, I'd certainly keep it northeast. I'd keep it here local because, yeah, as I say, I'm a big fan of the art scene that's kind of going on here, I suppose, at the minute. Yeah.
Well, Paul, thank you so much for taking part in the Panto podcast.
It's been a pleasure, an absolute pleasure. It's been brilliant. Thanks for having us. Thank you.